This is State Fair time, Minnesota State Fair time, and the high point of the year for most of us. Yes, folks are here from all over the state, from towns and villages, from cities and hamlets. People from all walks of life meet here together on common ground, friendly, happy, relaxed in the enjoyment of their own state fair. Just who are all these folks? Who are those from the city and the country, the north, the south? Who are the farmers, the butchers, the grocers, the bakers, the men from the factories, from the stores, from the mills, from the mines along the great Minnesota Iron Range? It's hard to tell. The day is filled with excitement, the judging of cattle and hogs, sheep and horses, pickles and jam, and thrills and pleasure. But it is not all. For the people of Minnesota are thinking people, and many of the attractions at the fair cause them to think about the things that take place in the state in which they live. Here are displays and exhibits which present vivid pictures of what the state's fertile lands, forested uplands, minerals, and other natural resources, coupled with commerce and industry, have done to make Minnesota great. Agriculture, livestock and dairy farming, lumber and wood products, printing and publishing, flour and feed milling, transportation, manufacturing of many kinds, and iron mining are among the leading industries which have changed this once prairie and forest wilderness into the progressive, forward-looking state that is Minnesota today. But soon the cotton candy, the peanuts and popcorn, the soda pop and limeades are forgotten. More substantial fare draws the visitors to the great dining halls that dot the fairgrounds. In each dining hall, little groups come together. Strangers all, in a sense, but brought into friendly relationship under the spell of the state fair. Let's meet some of these friendly people. Look in on them as they find happiness and enjoyment at the fair. Here's Joe Williams, his wife Anna, and Joe Jr., and little Betsy. They're bent on a fine holiday. Joe is a bookkeeper, and the last thing he's thinking of is that pile of ledgers awaiting him at the office.
Man said Mother weighed 140 pounds. Daddy said Mommy should go out and die.
This is Ed Jones with his wife and son Billy. Real holiday for Ed and his family. The factory where Ed works is completely forgotten for the day. Don Sturgis is a salesman for the milling company, and a good one. But right now he can't sell his daughter the idea that candy is to be eaten, not rubbed on his neck. And here are the Petersons. They're farmers. Carl Peterson owns a farm in southern Minnesota, dairy cattle. And brother Fred is a mining engineer. He's worked in iron ore mines all his life. And over the years, he has watched the changes that new developments and new processes have made on the Minnesota Iron Range. Iron ore holds as much interest for him as bumper wheat crops.
Oh, Billy, what have you done?
Oh, it's just some stuff out of that box.
There. What on earth is this?
That's iron ore made from taconite. Contains between 60 and 65% iron.
This what you dig out of the ground on the range?
Well, yes and no. You see, it's like this.
65% iron. Seems to me that's pretty rich digging.
And we don't actually dig this ore. We concentrate it from hard rock. It takes a long and expensive process to make it this rich.
I've heard that the mining companies are getting out once the good ore is gone.
Well, I don't think the companies are going to pull out yet. But what future do you see in Minnesota mining nowadays? All that ore they found in Labrador and South America is bound to hurt our mining industry, isn't it?
Couldn't get me on the range. Working summer, lay off fall, winter. Too rough. That's right, isn't it?
Now, wait a minute, not so fast. Sure, a lot of people have a lot of questions in their minds about iron mining. People are naturally interested in the Iron Range, what goes on up there, what it contributes to the whole state. But many of the questions are a result of what somebody told somebody else. All the questions have answers. Answers based on the knowledge and understanding of what's going on up there on the range today to make the industry bigger than ever. If you could visit the range, you'd see why iron ore mining is one of the biggest industries in Minnesota and of first importance to the nation. An industry that contributes millions of dollars to payrolls, purchases, and taxes. Every community in the state benefits in one way or another. The iron ore mining industry means jobs for thousands of people in Minnesota. About 15,000 people earning more than 50 millions of payroll dollars every year. That supports a lot of other folks. Druggists, doctors, lawyers, grocers, butchers, small retail stores of every kind. More than 250,000 people in northeastern Minnesota are directly or indirectly supported by the mining industry. Think of it. Everywhere you look, you can see for yourself why the mining industry must plan for years and years ahead. You can see it in the great Hull Rust Mahoning open pit, the largest of all the iron mines. Mining iron ore in the open pit seems like an easy job, but it isn't as easy as it appears to be. Open pit mining involves a lot of big machines to dig and process the ore, railways and ships to transport it to the nation's steel mills, and the working together of thousands of people stretched over 1,000 miles, and the spending of hundreds of millions of dollars to get the iron ore to the steel furnaces. Yes, there was a time when the Mesabi Range held good pockets of iron ore. Those pockets of high-grade ore were like small raisins tucked away in a great pudding of iron-bearing rock. The high-grade ore represents less than 5% of the mineable portion of the rock formation that contains iron. But no matter how much ore was dug out of the ground, there was always a need for more. And then, after 50 years of mining and 2 world wars, something happened on the old Mesabi Range. The shovels were beginning to scrape bottom. And before long, the word spread fast that the digging was running out. The great deposits of good iron ore in Minnesota were fading away. And that good ore, billions of tons of it, was to be had in foreign countries and even in other parts of the United States. The companies were going to quit. The Minnesota Iron Range was all washed up. Yes, sir, that's what a lot of people thought. What those people didn't think about was this. For many years, mining experts have considered that the end of Minnesota's high-grade direct shipping ores would come someday, unless ways could be found to use the tremendous quantities of low-grade ores.
But I understand there are still several 100 million tons of that high-grade ore left in the ground. How about that?
You sit here, Mr. Williams. We're going to take the children over to the Midway for a while.
But if the mining companies used only high-grade ore, there wouldn't be any great future in Minnesota iron mining. But they are out to keep the Minnesota Iron Range in business. A bigger and better business than we've ever thought of for generations to come. Now, here's what I mean. Now, in addition to the good iron ore you are talking about, which contains about 51.5% iron, there are hundreds of millions of tons of low-grade ore. Ore which miners call lean, wash, or intermediate, with a much lower percentage of iron. And a street gray rock called taconite, which is nature's original iron-bearing rock, containing as little as 25% iron. It's all these ores together, plus the great advances in mechanical methods of mining and metallurgy, and more millions of dollars for experimentation and new processing plants that hold the future of Minnesota mining secure.
You make it sound like a complicated operation just to scoop it out of the ground.
All mining is a complicated and costly operation. Even an open pit mine, which seems so simple. For instance, when you see a popple and pine forest up on the range, you could be seeing an iron mine, but you'd never know it until you did a lot of exploring. You first have to drill down to find out if there's ore beneath the surface. You may have to put down 100 holes or more. And if you're lucky enough to find it, then you plan how it can be mined. Then roads have to be built through the forest to bring in the equipment. Some of the machines weigh 20 tons and better. There are deep layers of sand, rock, and clay that cover the iron ore. All this must be stripped away. Miners call this waste material overburden. In some open pit operations, this waste material, as deep as a 30-story building, must be removed before you get at the ore. And that's only part of what makes mining an expensive business. Now, you said something about no work in winter. Actually, there's a lot of work done in the wintertime. For instance, stripping, clearing away the waste. It goes on all winter. And most big repair jobs on the big equipment are made during the winter. And underground mining goes on throughout the whole year. Never stops. And here's a point to remember. The costs of producing underground ore are large. So large that only the highest grade ores may be mined by this method.